my last panel, I just briefly touched on, I was a fairly disengaged student in high school, not very successful, barely made it into college, but the one media sort of project I got to do in high school was a political attack ad assigned to me by my government teacher. And it is actually something that I latched onto in hindsight. I can recognize that. And I remember loving sort of the editing process and remembering that how amazing it was that I could make this person look like an absolute crazy person, which is nice and telling to be able to understand media going forward. But I didn't really think about it as a career path. I wasn't able to take art classes. I overall just kind of like that project passed by and it didn't really change too much of what I was thinking I would do next. So fast forward to college, as a sophomore, I took my first media production class, and that's when things kind of like clicked into focus for me. And I eventually graduated with an interdisciplinary degree in a media production studio in English. It was sort of a make your own major up sort of thing where I could pick and choose classes from different subject areas in media production and studio art, where my two focuses, and English is my second thing.
Where was that?
It's a small liberal arts college in Michigan, Grand Rapids, Michigan, called Kaplan College. Pretty teeny tiny, 4,000 students. I give a lot of credit to my professors at that school. They kind of they put a lot of seriousness into preparing us for the industry. Like they made us show up with like button-down shirts and ties, and this was all kind of funny for us because we were college students. But they made it, seem like if you wrap this chord wrong, you're gonna get fired on set and all that stuff. And it did help us put seriousness into like our everyday coursework and that sort of thing. But at the end of the day, they were there to like catch us at any moment that we failed, and we were able to put a lot of ownership into our projects and have something to present, at the end of a class. And there were a lot of little moments that I can talk about later that like really solidified why I wanted to do this going forward. But it just it just was amazing to see these professors kind of work in a way that made us feel ownership over our work and not feel like they were kind of looking over our shoulder constantly and that sort of thing. So building creative confidence was one thing that they did really well. They gave us kind of these small wins. They didn't sort of like pat our egos too much, but they were able to like sort of tease out like what is that one thing that you're really good at out of all of these different like pieces of process that you could probably choose, and then let that sort of be the motivation to tackle these other processes that you're not so good at. And then one of the most important things that happened during that time for me was getting exposed to Vimeo and some of those like online communities around video making that were either really inspirational or just like people picking up like camera equipment and doing kind of whatever they wanted to do and putting it out in the world. And I just looked at it today. I have like 3,000 likes on my Vimeo channel, just like liking other people's stuff. It's something like daily I go to for inspiration still. So it really brought me out of that like, oh, look at these people, they're way above me. It's like it's a industry that I have no firm of reference for. I'll never be able to get into. Vimeo was sort of my like that door that opened a little bit that I could peer into and see how things were being made, but also just get inspired by content creators around the world, and like get notes from people that I didn't know, which was kind of interesting too.
Feedback on your work.
it's definitely a mindset that I've taken to my professional career as well. And then, just before I get to quantity over quality, when I graduated, I had a lot of classmates that were moving to LA. It's not something that really even occurred to me or that I was fully interested in. I kind of just graduated and I wanted to make stuff, and that's what I knew I wanted to do. I didn't necessarily want. This is my college self talking. I don't want to get coffee for someone for a year, just to get into the door where I might be able to make something. And looking back at that, I totally understand that getting coffee for someone for a little while is an important thing. But it was my mindset kind of coming out of school. My first real job out of school was for an online retailer called modcloth.com. And this is a job that I was doing freelance, and they hired me on as their first video production hire. They didn't know what they wanted to do with video, but they knew they wanted to do it. So it was just kind of like my role to grow that department and figure out what the sort of like strategy long term with video was, and just day to day. So we were doing a lot of this, and frankly, I'm still doing a lot of this. Just like making a ton of videos, seeing what sticks, getting better at learning how to see how it sticks, and then kind of coming back and reiterating on those ideas. And I didn't have necessarily experience or any particular interest in the fashion industry going into ModCloth, but because it is a fashion retailer, they sell like vintage-inspired women's clothing and apartment items. For those of you who don't know. But what attracted me to it was they wanted to experiment with creative online video production, so we were doing short documentaries with inspiring women, videos about like DIY techniques. I was supposed to like walk the room, right?
Put the doors out.
Surprise! That would be amazing. But I was really attracted to their approach to social media. That was kind of like what grew them at first. So I knew that they would have a similar approach to video making in terms of how they just iterate on ideas, and the ideas themselves don't have a lot of weight, but just executing over and over again to get to a better result is kind of how we went about it. So I just wanted to show a quick reel from my 4 years there. I started as their first video production hire, then I ended my time there as the creative team video manager. There it is. So that's how this connects to public media and similar stuff. I'm just probably wondering what that connects to public media. So I hope that gives you an idea of like just the breadth of stuff we were experimenting with. We were doing like campaign videos, DIY videos, some really only for online consumption. Like we're not doing events, we're not doing in person like showing or anything like that. And then after about those 4 years, I wanted to do something a little bit more along the lines of what I was interested in personally. Yes.
How did you and ModCloth find each other?
So I moved to Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania after my after graduation, which is Pittsburgh is not like the most media-centered place, but I was freelancing. They started there. They hired me as a freelancer. I did probably 10 projects or something like that, and then they wanted to start a video team. And they moved their creative team as a whole out to San Francisco, and that's how I ended up in San Francisco.
So you knew of them and submitted some of your work to them, or they knew of you and they sought you out, or they posted a job posting?
They posted
Okay.
a freelance posting on Craigslist,
Okay.
which is not super typical anymore.
Right.
But and they were a company of 80 people when I started, and now or when I left, they were a company of about 500 or so. So they were pretty small at the beginning, and that's kind of how I got into that.
What was your short called again?
This is just a reel of like over the 4 years I was at modcloth.com. Yeah.
But is it something I can pick up on Vimeo? Is it on Vimeo?
It is on Vimeo. It's just on my personal Vimeo. It's on my website, which is JONDALEBROWN.com.
I'm not that fast.
I can give you the info. I can give you the info for all these videos later too.
Can you tell me what you used to film? Basically, what kind of...
Yeah, we used a ton of different kinds of things. In-house, we would have DSLRs, so we had like the Canon 5D Mark II to start out with, and then kind of upgraded from there. So we did a lot of different like stop motion-y kind of style stuff. That was all like the 5D Mark II or 5D Mark III. And then for the documentary style stuff, we also used those same Canons. With every now and then we would get like a nicer rental or something, but it was pretty, I mean, the whole time it was pretty low budget.
That's just my last question. The only reason I'm saying this is
Yeah.
I have these, little boys who are involved with the real producer with some PSA announcements, and they're just not savvy enough to do something that's quick and short. Almost like a Target commercial, like
Yeah.
just very eye-catching but very cool. Like when she walks, she's in the picture,
Yeah.
and then she walks out of it.
Mhm.
And they could do that, but I can only imagine what they're going to come up with. It's going to be very basic, and I would love to show them just something. Just to get them thinking, like you said, just play with it, try, and look at how you can manipulate time to make the PSA more inviting. Because that was really cool.
Yeah, I think a lot of it is like for each of those video projects of the hundreds that were in the video, we would create like a mood board sort of thing with other videos that we found that matched up stylistically, or we wanted to mimic the edit, that sort of thing. So we always had reference material for everything we did.
What's your personal favorite editing software?
I use all Adobe stuff.
Okay.
Yeah. I had Avid in school, which is fine. It's great. But it's not super accessible in terms of, and Adobe can be expensive too, I know, but the integration there with like Photoshop and After Effects, and it offers like a wide range of like growing possibilities. Yeah. Yeah.
My big issue is everybody thinks, oh, you know how to do this, you're an expert. You should be able to do it like that. So, like that little video from shooting and everything, what was about the total time that it took to do?
That one's hard because it is a reel, so there's like tons of projects in there, and I can maybe break down, I have other videos in here that are just kind of their own thing. I can maybe break down one of those. Like that was 4 years of working long weeks and that kind of stuff. I mean, one of the campaign videos would be, you know, a week of pre-production, which was like, maybe we were doing set building, maybe it was like putting together outfits or lining up models or whatever it may be, or maybe we were winging it. So it really depends on the kind of project, and I can certainly break that down for my
I want to
process.
see it broken down.
Yeah. I think the thing is, it's a lot of work, and I hate to, I know, I feel like everybody glosses over that part. It's just like, you kind of have to put the hours in.
Well, and I want to get some videos that I can say, you know what, an expert did this and it took them
Yeah.
2 weeks, 10-hour days or whatever.
Yeah.
Because I think we tend to minimalize
Yeah.
what effort it takes when it's someone else. And so I want to, for lack of a better word, mount my evidence when I'm asked, why did it take you so long? Well, it takes time.
One thing I'm doing right now with my work at KQED is I'm clocking in and clocking out. Like, I don't have to do that for my job, but I want to track how long it takes to edit this specific piece. I have some pieces at the end that we can talk about that I timed myself. It's like, I know that this took 23 hours to edit. So, and I also know that I spent half day shooting it or whatever. So I have that stuff broken out, and I think it's super valuable because I need that stuff as well, like ongoing. If I'm doing a freelance project or if I'm doing a project for KQED or somewhere, I need to be able to be like, I'm going to spend this amount of time and this is how much it's going to cost you. So just having some of that, being able to track what you're working on is really important, just in terms of what kind of resources you're expending. Yeah, and I'll dig into that in a second. Okay, cool. Anybody have anything else on the mock class stuff?
I've done some things actually. I don't know where it's relevant yet.
Okay.
I'll let you go.
So the next place I went was Instructables.com, which is like DIY website. They're owned by Autodesk, so their mandate is it's a user-generated website, but I was a part of a team that made content on a weekly basis to kind of get eyes to the site. And this is just kind of a brief overview video, just to give you an idea of what Instructables is.
Instructables is a place that lets you explore, document, and share what you make. Whether you like to tinker with LEDs and breadboards, fancy an afternoon of fiber arts, prefer to get your hands dirty in the garden, or spend your weekends in the workshop, everyone has something to share, including you. To create an Instructable, make something and document it as you go. It can be as simple or complex as you like. Using the app or your computer, upload your photos or videos and explain how you made it. Publish your Instructable and join our welcoming community. It's people like you that make this site a great place to share ideas. Now get out there and make something.
There it is. So that video specifically, obviously stop motion. There's, it's a little bit scrappy in terms of the production. We used like a conference room and like got what we could from Home Depot. And we weren't necessarily shooting everything at once, which would have been nice because people had to use the conference room for a meeting room. So it was me, myself, and one other person that essentially did the production, and then myself as an editor on that. But we used like the 5D Mark II and some minimal lighting and that sort of thing. But hopefully it gives you an idea of what Instructables is. And I think essentially we were just charged with making videos that got as many eyes to the site as possible. So that was like our baseline indicator. Here's another one really really quick. And all of these projects, just I want to say, are actually real. Like you can go to instructables.com and make this watch if you have a 3D printer. So that one is timed well with the launch of the Apple Watch, right? Like we tried to do some shot matching and that sort of stuff with one of their promos, and just try to be a little bit more snarky and playful and stuff like that. And one thing that doesn't really come across is that you can actually make that on your own with the 3D printer and stuff, which is pretty cool because all of the insides work and everything, which is crazy. Yeah. With Instructables, I really had the chance to build an audience with them. DIY content is something that does really well online in general. And when I started there, I was their first video production hire, and I was there for a year. But we went from 30,000 subscribers on YouTube to 60,000 subscribers, and they kind of they're continually, on the rise. There's a lot of key indicators of that. But like we were publishing once a week, and with the Apple Watch piece, we wanted to make sure we were timing things right, and we were really brutal about key performance indicators, those views. Views on site was the only indicator people cared about. So that was actually one of the reasons why I made the transition away from Instructables and marketing video in general, because it started to become a little bit more clickbaity, and not necessarily something that I wanted to share with my friends all the time.
What is views on site? I mean, do you go to the Instructable site and watch it there?
Yeah. Views on site.
People see your website.
And just video views in general, so whether it's on Facebook or YouTube or what have you. But it was also just really about understanding their brand and understanding a playful approach and what kind of resonated with the audience that they already had and building on that. And one thing I really like doing is making bumpers for a video series or for a brand or something, and it can be a really cool exercise to do to help yourself understand this thing that you're making work underneath. And this is just a quick reel of some of the bumpers we made at Instructables. They're 5 seconds. Now I'm trying to make bumpers that are 3 seconds, but it's just what can you pack in those 3 seconds that tell people something about the style of brand that this video is coming from. And a lot of these are super quick, super easy. Some of them obviously just stencil. They're all stop motion, just top down, very minimal lighting. The fun part I think is the kind of brings them to life in a way.
You make all those sound effects too?
Yeah. We either make them or find out.
pretty cool, this project vision.
Yeah.
Are they 5 cents?
These are 5,
Yeah.
but I'm like, after, this is 2014 bumpers, in like 2015 we started making 30-second bumpers because 5 seconds was just too long.
Too long, couldn't keep their attention.
But it was really important from a branding perspective because these videos were getting shared on Facebook like millions. Yeah.
So what took longer, coming up with the ideas or the?
Coming up with the
actual
ideas.
video?
Yeah. The videos themselves were pretty simple, quick, like an hour or 2 maybe to set things up and shoot it and stuff. But like having someone to concept like that wood one where we like planing it and the letters kind of reveal, like that takes some thought, I think.
What's the creative process in that?
That was, there's just like a group of designers that work at Instructables, and as my job as like the video producer, I was like, okay, we need these bumpers. Like these are the kind of parameters that they need to be. This is kind of the style. Like we want it to be handmade feel, like stop motion style. A reveal, but it's got to be a quick reveal. You kind of have to understand where we are and that sort of thing. And then we kind of brainstorm, so it's like a really free form. Like they're the experts in how things are made, and then I kind of am there to either suggest something or guide something somewhere else. But you know, they kind of are like, well, I can make it this way. Like that's great. I don't know how to 3D print something.
Was it all stop motion or is it simulated stop motion?
It's all stills.
It's all stills.
Yeah, some of it's smoother than other. Like I wasn't paying attention to how many frames per second I was shooting.
Okay.
For better or worse.
That's on purpose, right? To create sort of that.
Yeah.
Like the crabs at the end, obviously they're real crabs and they're moving.
They're real crabs.
You're just grabbing frames
Mhm.
at split seconds.
Yeah. What I do is I set up my Premiere time. I don't know if this is getting too much into the weeds, but
Okay.
I set up my Premiere timeline to default still images at 3 frames, and then I just drag and drop. And sometimes I'm like taking stills out, but typically I just like that flow. And that with that crab one, I just shot as fast as the camera would allow me to because I knew I wanted some like smoother motion with that crab.
Are you an automatic out here?
Yeah, with like a mono.
Yeah.
With that one specifically, we were pretty high up, just with the way it was set up.
Can I ask you what format you do? You talked about mood boards. How do you create that space for people to contribute?
It's kind of taken a number of different forms. Honestly, I have like a lot of private albums on Vimeo. It's not my favorite way to like share a mood because it's just kind of like a list of videos. But it's a pretty easy way to like collect and send people things. And then Pinterest is one as well that I use quite a bit. I have a lot of private boards on Pinterest that I collect imagery and kind of create like a snapshot of whatever that production is. I don't do that as much anymore with art school, but it's something I did quite a bit earlier. So I talked a little bit about some of those key takeaways, but it was really working in a consistent publishing schedule, which turned out like got closer and closer to once a week. Timing and those key performance indicators, which was views, and that got a little old. And kind of like running out of time a little bit. This video, I can just explain it because there's nothing too special about it. It's one of those things about the internet, you're never going to be able to control what's the most popular about your stuff. This video has like 40 million views and it's got like millions of shares, but it's about how to fold a napkin into a Christmas tree. It's like, I don't know. But it's one of those things, I'll never make a video that has more views than that, just ever. I will never do it.
And that's on Vimeo?
That's on YouTube and Facebook, under Instructables brand. And like a lot of our biggest sharing that was happening was on Facebook. And this was probably like a year ago when Facebook was really pouring their efforts into like reprioritizing video. So that helped. And this was like a little bit more labor intensive, and the designer actually made this, and it has like a fraction of the viewership, and it's like a significantly more complicated video, but it's just kind of one of those things like when you're brainstorming, it's something that like the ego creeps in a little bit, and I'm like, oh, this would be so cool, but the audience might not resonate with it. Like keeping that like really
fold a napkin and just
yeah.
the hot sauce. Oh yeah.
Yeah. And then this one is just gives you a sense of the Untouchables brand one more time.
Hi, I'm Randy from Instructables, and this is the Groundhog Day alarm clock. The Panasonic RC6025 alarm clock made infamous by the movie Groundhog Day. This one is special because it plays the audio from the movie every single time the alarm goes off. Go to Instructables.com to learn how to make your own Groundhog Day alarm clock. The Panasonic RC6025 alarm clock made infamous by the movie Groundhog Day. This one is special because it plays the audio from the movie every single time the alarm goes off. Go to Instructables.com to learn how to make your own Groundhog Day alarm clock. The Panasonic RC6025 alarm clock made infamous by the movie Groundhog Day.
And I can finish out the session with that if I needed to. But yeah, just another example. That goes on for 11 minutes. Some people on YouTube watch the whole thing and like we're really angry. It's just one of those things about YouTube. And then I just wanted to talk, and please feel free to ask any questions as we're kind of like nearing the end a little bit. But I wanted to talk about why I left the commercial world a little bit and went into public media. It's like I've had some really fun jobs with ModCloth and Instructables. Both were great places. Both allowed me to experiment and have creative control, which is not something a lot of people that were on staff could say. But I really wanted to explore like the public media landscape as a whole. I love public media. I've always been like a super fan of all that stuff. And at the end of the day, I got tired of like the bottom line approach and just selling people things they don't need. You know, becoming a little bit clickbaity and like filling the internet with junk. That kind of stuff. Not that all of this stuff is junk, but it was beginning to feel like it. So I switched over to KQED, and I had a lot of people there, like pure journalists. I was kind of like, I still am kind of like an outsider in terms of just learning the craft of that world and stuff like that. But I'm like absolutely in love with the content and the real like serving the audience is really what they're all about, which is a hard thing to explain, but serving the audience is not what like retailers are about, and you feel that eventually, even if you are trying to serve your audience to get more views. It's just a very different sort of foundational element that now it feels way more fulfilling to get up and go to work and make videos for audience that really is amazing, and about artists that are really inspirational as well. So, just want to play a quick one.
I believe my style of work is walking the line between a lot of different polarities. Brutal, horrific, too pretty, claustrophobic, dense, textured, colorful. I am Elizabeth Higgins O'Connor. My work is influenced by many, many things, but two things that really stand out for me: the works of Goya in his Los Caprichos and the Disasters of War, and the structures and homes in economically disadvantaged populations, like the favelas in Brazil or the shanty towns in Johannesburg, South Africa. Los Caprichos are often little morality tales or pokes at polite society. I think what's really beautiful about them are their line quality. They're very urgent, they're very physical, they're very beautiful, and they're also very satirical. I've been influenced by Goya's quality of cross-hatching and different weights of line. My work, it's three-dimensional, it's sculptural, but it's very much about line as well, and restating contours or redefining edges with different swaths of fabric. So the people who live in favelas and shanty towns are a marginalized community. They're building with really brutal materials sometimes: patchwork, weathered, home, preciousness, detail, repurposed materials. There's so much ingenuity in these structures. I'm inspired by that spirit to be resilient and to build something, or to build your home, or to build something that you cherish, despite being marginalized. I've found that developing my own voice is not being satisfied with one thing. So the first time you make something, a drawing or a painting or a sculpture that you really like, you're learning how to do it for the first time. You're the only person in the world that can do that particular drawing or painting or sculpture, because you're unique and that thing is unique. So it takes a little bit of time, it's slow, you're learning, it's a slower process. But if you're building a body of work, the second one's a little bit faster because you've learned so much from the first one. And the third one, you're kind of on a roll, and the fourth one, you have an army, and now you have 5 of them, and you're surrounded by your work, and you can be more playful and more experimental and less precious about your work because you have more than one. Ask yourself, what piece have I made that I really love? And then take that piece and make more of it.
So that's a snapshot of art school. I have like 10 more videos to show, but I'm not going to do that.
Hey, can I ask you a quick technical question? What was that lens that you used in the first shot there?
In the interview?
She's really close up in the background. It almost looks like a fisheye, but I don't think it is.
It's a 15 millimeter, and it's on a Canon C100. So it's a little bit of a fisheye effect. We started this as like a little mini-series exploring how artists develop their style and picking 2 sort of points along their road of developing a style. And what we were thinking was doing it via webcam, honestly. So we could pull from artists anywhere. But we did a pilot and it wasn't really what we wanted. So went back to that same artist and was like, we're just gonna shoot this kind of like normally. I'm gonna come and do the production and stuff like that. But I still wanted that like kind of visceral feel where if they're leaning into something, you really feel them lean into it, and their hands are like moving great distances, it feels like, you know? So to me, it kind of like draws you into it a little bit differently than the like 2-shot close-up medium with the person kind of looking to the side sort of thing. Both are very valid and stuff like that, but it's just kind of like a style that we wanted to try. And this was an example of just pre-formatted, like pre-interview. I knew the format already, like intro to topics and sort of like a piece of advice. So we would do the pre-interview, we would figure that all out, it'd be like 30-minute phone call, and then the shoot would be like a half day, 45-minute interview, and then the post-production time is probably like 15 hours. And I wanted to throw this in here because I was a part of a team at KQED that experimented and are experimenting with 360 video and virtual reality filmmaking. And I do have a demo, but I don't want to show it because I'm already out of time. And but if anybody had any questions at any point, we put a lot of effort into researching, and we went through a whole design thinking process around how could we use this as producers, but also in our specific fields too. So, and you'd love to hear some of your thoughts about this technology. It's kind of new, and yeah. So it's cool. But if anybody has any other questions, we can wrap up. Yeah.
Are you in San Francisco?
Yeah.
Do you want to come to San Jose?
Sure. Yeah. Absolutely.
Cool. Yeah, it's good to see.
Yeah.
You have a card?
I do. I have a few cards up here. We also have art school stickers.
I already spoke to that.
But thank you for coming and listening to my blabber.
Yeah, thank you.